Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. At Natal's Air Conditioning, our motto is service honoring the golden rule. We're dedicated to providing the best air conditioning solution for your home or business in the New Orleans metro area. More information is available at 504-821-0005. Natal's Air Conditioning, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Over the next hour, we'll tackle the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, and the Tulane Green Waves. We talk about what's happening with those teams. We got two great guests on the panel tonight. Corey Johnson of 990 AM WGSO and a whole bunch of other stuff. We'll talk about that. And back in the fold again, Bradley Handwerger, freelance journalist, joining us on the program as well. Gentlemen, thanks for being here this evening. As always, I appreciate your time. And KJ, we'll start with you. We got at least 3 or 4 minutes for you just to tell everybody everything you do.
Eric, I do my radio show every weekday afternoon on 990 AM from 3 to 5. It's also simulcast on Cox Channel 4 television and Charter Channel 325 on the North Shore. I do editorials on Channel 26 3 days a week on the 6 o'clock news, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think too much more.
I think that's enough.
I gave up the River Ridge garbage route. I don't do that anymore.
I'm picking that up.
That was great. Riding on the back of the truck. I mean,
they
it's
miss
fun.
you out there.
Yeah. It's a couple days
I
a
did
week.
a good job. I didn't leave trash around like you. You know, come on.
Come on, no doubt. Bradley Handwerger back with us, and Bradley, welcome back. And Bradley is a freelance journalist. Tell us a little bit about why you got back into it, and folks can check out his column on my website at ericasher.com and also on his Twitter handle as well. Bradley, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. I'm sure if both of y'all can well attest, it's hard to just flat out get rid of any of this media stuff. So I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed, kind of putting my spin on things. I guess who doesn't enjoy putting their spin on things? But yeah, it's just hard to give up.
Right. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, and I've told you this privately, there was a void without you out there reporting and giving your opinion. You've done a great job previously with WWL TV, their website, and on 4th Down and 4, and glad that you're back writing again. And you can, again, check him out. ericasher.com. He's got his own page, and he'll be doing stuff on Saints as Pelicans get in, Pelicans, and I'm sure LSU and Tulane as we go. Let's kick it off, though. Let's talk a little bit first about the NFL. Whoa, man. Have they been blindsided over the last couple of weeks? Ray Rice first. Well, we go back first. Greg Hardy, then Ray Rice, then Adrian Peterson, now Jonathan Dwyer, all with abuse cases, some domestic abuse, some child abuse cases. Corey, I'll start with you. NFL in a little bit of a tailspin here. How do they recover from this? What needs to happen for them to get right with the not just the football community, but with the public as a whole?
Yeah, right now NFL stands for no females or little ones. It's a problem.
Yeah.
It really is. And, Eric, I was thinking about it today. I think it exposed parts, behind the scenes problems maybe with the NFL, and they're hypersensitive to it because it's a physical game that's violent on the field, and I'm sure they don't want players taking that violence off the field, and that maybe people are going to think it's a higher percentage of abuse going on with NFL players than in the regular mainstream, part of the country. But something I think it also exposed that I was kind of shocked how many people accept this behavior.
Yeah.
That don't have a problem with what Ray Rice did. Woman gets in my face, I'm going to hit her. And don't have a problem with what Adrian Peterson's doing. It's my kid. You're going to tell me how to raise him, and corporal punishment. But I think Adrian Peterson and Ray Rice clearly are on the wrong side of that, and it's blatant. And what scared me is how much of the population thinks they're okay with what they did.
Yes.
That's what scared me.
I couldn't agree more. I didn't hear as much blowback about the Ray Rice thing. People generally, at least my friends and the people I talked to about it, agreed that he was way over the line. The one that surprised me is how many people with Adrian Peterson said, I was whipped as a kid. I had somebody discipline me. I just don't see what's wrong with it. He was doing it for the right reasons, and I'm like, that's not really the argument. It's not whether he was doing it for the right reasons. It's how he did it and how viciously he did it. And to me, there's a line that was just so far crossed.
Yeah, I think, I use this as an analogy. U.S. News and World Report brings out these college rankings every year, and LSU doesn't fare too well. They're like 129th. They're 12th ranked academically in the SEC out of 14 teams, 12th, and it's an athletic conference, not an academic conference. And then, I might get a caller or a commenter, my daughter went to LSU, she graduated, she's doing fine. That means LSU is a good school? And you get the same discussion with, I got whipped, I got beat, I came out fine. That means that beating is a good thing. Right. So I think we confuse, coming out fine and the experiences you had in life, that they're okay. It's not a universal stamp that these things are okay because your daughter went to LSU and is doing fine, or you got beat as a kid and you're doing fine.
It may be a little apples to oranges here, but
it is.
But I've compared it to friends like, women didn't have the right to vote in the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. Was that right? No. Times have changed.
Yes.
Things are different. It's just because it was right 50 years ago doesn't mean it's right now. And I think that's where we need to be as a society, realizing that things are changing.
I think you're spot on with that, Bradley. I think that in some parts of the country, pulling a switch off a tree and making the kid go get the switch and then whipping him with the switch is accepted behavior. 50s, 60s. This is 2014,
yeah.
and I think that's part of the problem that we're dealing with here. But how does the NFL now right itself? Because this has been a public relations nightmare for them. They have gone out of their way to try to introduce football to females. Females, again, when you start talking about the apparel, everything else that they're marketing to them, now they're trying to figure out, wait a minute, how do we hold on to this female audience? What does the NFL have to do now to kind of right this ship?
It seems like a lot of women were wearing Ray Rice jerseys to that first game, which is kind of surprising. Eric, I think the NFL, have they messed things up? Of course. There's a few things they've messed up, and they've even said so. They've had to go back and repenalize Ray Rice. The Vikings have had to go back and repenalize Adrian Peterson. But the NFL's not dumb. There's a bunch of geniuses that work at the NFL offices, some that know accounting and math, some that know marketing. And they've got the best people sitting at a table throwing ideas around. How do we keep this suppressed? How do we keep this down and not bring it back out? And I think having Commissioner Roger Goodell a week later have to come out and say something about Adrian Peterson after the Ray Rice thing, the better deal is pass the buck down the line. Let's let the Vikings handle this. Let's let the Vikings come back and do what we did and have to, we made a mistake and we're sorry and we're going to do this. And what's ironic, he's on this exempt list that only Goodell can put a player on for unusual circumstances. So the league, I think, is brilliant and genius. They penalized Adrian Peterson and Bradley and Eric. They appeased advertisers all in one swoop. Everybody's good now.
All right, I'm also on the exempt list. I don't have a clue what that list is.
It means you get paid.
I have never heard of that until
full salary.
But two, they may have appeased things right now, but they haven't corrected or answered the situation. To me, and I'm not a lawyer, there may be legal reasons that this can't do this, but to me, there's one solution, and that is take the players off if they commit an offense, take the players off the field without pay, with the caveat that if you go through the legal system and you are I hate to say it this way because this is not how our society is. It's not supposed to be, at least, until you're proven innocent.
Right.
Then we'll give you your back pay. But the only way that athletes and really anybody learn a new characteristic is if you take away the thing they love most, and who doesn't love money? Right. You can take them off the field, but if you're continuing to pay them, they're getting a vacation without.
In essence, they are taking away something they love, though. They're taking away the game.
Money speaks louder.
Yes, money does speak.
I think it does.
But that's it. Give them back pay if things come out well.
How telling what Bradley just says. I mean, he's working at Channel 4. He's working with Jim Henderson all during Bountygate. He's doing his commentaries online. Him and Henderson are having that back and forth online. He's obviously very knowledgeable on top of this as much as anyone. He doesn't know what this list is, and Vilma was supposedly on that list. That was announced that Vilma was on this list. I found out Vilma was on this list today. I was like, oh, wow, he was on that list back then and it even existed. So, yeah, this could just be a bunch of smoke and mirrors and, something that just recently popped up.
Goodell, does he weather this storm? Does he stay commissioner?
He does. If nothing else happens, if things don't continue to spiral out of control, which at this point, with everything that's happened, I really can't see, maybe this is just naivete, but I don't see things getting much worse at this point. We may have seen the crest and it may go down, but I think he sticks on the job. Look, he has raised the profile of the NFL, I don't even know how many fold. He has made the league so much more money. They have the collective bargaining agreement with the players through, was it 2020 at this point? The league financially is in good shape. And as I just said, money speaks. The owners like that money. Unless
Goodell, there's a video or some proof that he saw the Ray Rice video in April or May, not 2 weeks ago when TMZ released it, that would be the only way he'll be gone.
Right.
I agree with Bradley. I mean, there are 32 guys that are going to make that decision, 32 billionaires. I don't know if Goodell is beloved by them, but I've got to think they very much like him. Their franchises are valued at an all-time high.
Yeah.
We can go through all this Forbes stuff. And that seemed pretty reputable. But the thing was, not a lot of teams were selling. Buffalo just sold for $1.4 million. So if the Bills are worth $1.4 million, the Saints are worth north of that. That means if Jacksonville moved to L.A. and the Clippers and the NBA are worth $2 billion, Jacksonville and L.A. would be $3 billion if they moved there. So the franchises are at an all-time high. Record profits and revenues from the TV contract, DirecTV, all the networks, every network's involved now. There's no you don't get the AFC, you get the NFC, you're out. Everyone's involved now. There are more nights of NFL than ever, record revenues. Yeah, I don't know if he's beloved, but I think those 32 billionaires like Roger Goodell and the job he's doing.
I agree with both you guys. I think he weathers the storm as well. 866-3200 if you'd like to join the conversation. Let's shift to the Saints.
He makes $100,000 a day.
Oh, well.
$100,000
It's good money if you can get it.
If you,
7 days a week, 365.
That's not bad.
That's really nice money.
Saints go to 0-2. They lose to Cleveland 26-24, and another heartbreaker. Lose to a quarterback that honestly, I had visions of Billy Kilmer throwing the ball out there. Those wounded ducks. Barely, I don't think you saw Billy Kilmer play.
I know of Billy Kilmer.
You know of Billy Kilmer.
I didn't see Billy Kilmer.
But believe me, toward the end of his career, wasn't throwing too many spirals out there. With that said, from a defensive side of the ball, that's where the problems lie with this team right now. They did clean up the missed tackles. They had 16 missed tackles the week before. They did clean those up, but still lacking pressure on the passer, which is exposing the back end of the defense, particularly Patrick Robinson. There are communication problems right now with this defense. Bradley, I'll start with you. How do they change this downward spiral they're in after last year being the 4th-ranked defense in the NFL?
It's a couple of things. I mean, I don't think wholesale changes are the answer. I don't think shuffling players in and out is necessarily the answer. I think what they need to do, and whether they go to Morning Call or they go to Cafe Du Monde or they go to CC's or whatever, the defensive backs need to get together and say, when I do this, this is what you need to do. There needs to be better communication back then. I think the problems start with a lack of communication in the back and are really kind of blow up at the front by having no pressure on the quarterback.
Yes.
And you can have the best secondary in the NFL, but if you can't get to the quarterback and make the quarterback hurry, then those guys are just going to be running out of breath covering people. Mm-hmm. So to me, the issue is they need to just work and get better at what they do. And the thing is, I've covered this team for years. They've got the people in the locker room, the leadership up high, maybe not necessarily in the locker room, but Sean Payton and the coaches and Drew Brees, the leadership's there to right the ship.
Right. I want to get back to leadership in a moment. Corey, your thoughts?
Spagnuolo had the worst defense in the history of the NFL. Rob Ryan comes in. I mean, there's got to be an improvement. There's no way to go down. It was the worst ever. I mean, one year they had the most yards offensively in the history of the NFL. The next year they gave up the most yards in the history of the NFL, right back to back like that. So you expected the defense to be better. I think they rode under the radar last year where teams were like, this is the worst defense in the history of the league. And I think people were just overlooking them, not preparing as much, focusing in on something else. And Rob Ryan kind of got a pass. And I think he did a good job scheming and coming up with different gimmicks and stuff. But I think this year teams are preparing for the Rob Ryan tendencies. I think the media is a little soft in this town, and we're elevating Junior Gillette to Pro Bowl, All-Pro status. And, the interior of the D-line is solid all of a sudden now. I'm like, God, it's a bunch of situational players, and none of them are stars. I mean, name me a star on that defense. There's not one star. Jarris Bird's probably your best defensive player, Cameron Jordan. And Jarris Bird doesn't even know what uniform he's in right now for coming from Buffalo. And Cameron Jordan's a really good, complete player. But linebacker play is a step slow, a second late, not very good. No really good linebackers. I think the safeties are improved physically, but Bradley's probably right. Communication's a problem. I mean, Roman Harper was like a coach on the field. Jenkins was a smart player. I just don't think there's a lot of stars on defense.
Well, and as we talked about before the show, Jarris Bird didn't play throughout the preseason.
Right.
No, you're right.
He's still getting comfortable with the other guys on the field, and I think that's a large part of it.
Right. And I'll go back to something I did on my show on Tuesday of this week, my radio show. I went back and did the research because I, like everyone else, is trying to figure out what is the problem with this defense. It's pretty much the same cast of characters we saw last year with the exception of a few. You look at the offensive side of the ball going back to the 2009 season, Breeze, Colston, Thomas, Streif, Evans, Meacham, and Goodwin back with this team. That's leadership. You look on the defensive side of the ball, there is no one. Again, Vilma, Smith, long in the tooth, they've been jettisoned. Shanley, you go back to Shanley, Fajita, those guys are gone. Really the last holdovers were Greer, Harper, and Jenkins. And those guys now are gone. And then you look at that, so automatically you've got a lack of leadership, getting guys in the right position on the field, and then in the locker room also, making sure these young guys are doing what they need to do to prepare for Sunday. And I think that it's really kind of sticking out like a sore thumb right now. The question is, can those leaders develop quickly now?
Yeah, so they have to. There's a lack of communication. There's a lack of kind of unconsciously knowing what the other guy's doing because it's such a new group back there. What's sad is that the first two games, close losses, but and the Saints struggle on the road. But what's sad is you have a special offense. Even with, it's not perfect, but it's very, very, very good. And if the defense can just sort of be middle of the road, the Saints are a pretty good football team. But if the defense is bad, it's going to be a 30-31 game every week and a last-second field goal to either win or lose.
Right. We've said that for years.
Yeah.
That has been really the case for years.
You talk about the leadership. Curtis Lofton is a guy his experience, probably one of the more experienced guys on the defense.
6 years in the league or something?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think he does hold the respect of his teammates in the locker room. So it may be a factor, or it may be a case of maybe he just needs to speak up a little more. Right. But you look at your other defensive captain, Junior Gillette. He's going on Twitter after the Cleveland game and really knocking the fans for not being happy with the way they played. You know, that's not what your captain should be doing. It's not what a leader should be doing.
You got Jairus Byrd in the locker room blaming the media for trying to divide the team, which, again, you've been here 5 minutes.
The softest media in the world. I mean, game one, you've got a fight with Ingram and Peyton, and no one talks about it, writes about it. We know nothing about it. Week 2, Ryan and Peyton are arguing on the sideline. No questions about it, nothing written, nothing spoken about it. I mean, Jairus Byrd's crazy to think the media is dividing this team right now.
And I think you talk about Jairus Byrd, I think that gets back to losing 3 of your stalwart leaders in the locker room. Jabari Greer, I get it. He had an injury. You know, that makes sense to me. But you have to bring back to me either Roman Harper or Malcolm Jenkins. You need one of those guys to really make the young guys in secondary. It's a young secondary.
Yep.
Understand what the professional
maybe you
football
needed to keep Champ Bailey.
Right. Well, and that's kind of my next question. You know, going into camp, you're looking at the number 2 cornerback position, and you're talking about Patrick Robinson right now, and you look at the cast of characters they brought in. You saw what happened with Jabari Greer last year when he went down. You have to know going into this season that, again, the troubles that you had with teams targeting whoever was playing opposite Keenan Lewis, that somehow, some way, I don't care how you got to maneuver the cap, you got to get somebody in here that you can trust. Now, look, the lack of pass rush has really kind of exposed the secondary, no doubt about it. But you go and you get a guy in Champ Bailey who's on fumes. You get a project in Stanley Jean-Baptiste, and then you end up with a failed project in Patrick Robinson. And to me, that's, as much as we want to give accolades to Loomis and Peyton and Harley and the rest of the guys, Reiprish in the front office, this was a crucial mistake going into this season.
And what's scary about cornerback, it's a 3-man deal now in the NFL. Yeah. It's not 2. I mean, 75% of the time you're playing 3 corners, so they're at least 2 behind, really.
Corey White's a nice interior guy, but again, he may start on the outside this week. They're going to get targeted there until they prove they can stop somebody. And, to me, that is a void. And we've seen Patrick Robinson for 4 years. And, to think that all of a sudden he was going to pull a Mark Ingram and that he was going to, because he's in a contract year, that he's automatically going to turn this thing around. I didn't see it, and it's something I sounded the alarm in the preseason about, and right now they're having to deal with.
The D-line, I mean, that's really the problem. The cornerbacks would be a lot better if the D-line had outside of Cameron Jordan, who was a real full-time starter on the D-line that, could go to any team and would probably be a starter.
Akeem Hicks probably.
Probably Akeem Hicks, but he's still, he's up and coming still. It's like, to make Akeem Hicks that definitive guy would be like Junior Gillette being the definitive guy. And Gillette's the captain. What skins does he have on the wall? I mean, I'm not knocking him. He's got a few sacks and a few good plays, but my God, he's not a complete defensive end, and he's very green and young. He's almost like Akeem Hicks, probably a year more advanced than Akeem Hicks.
866-3200 is the phone number. Let's head to the phone lines to Folsom and Bryce. Bryce, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Okay, I think we may have lost Bryce. Bryce, you still with us? Okay, I think we lost Bryce. Actually, he wanted to ask about Patrick Robinson as well. Looking at where they are right now, last year we saw a lot of instances where they played 3 safeties. We read the Wall Street Journal article about Rob Ryan saying, I'm putting the best 11 on the field regardless of position. I'm going to tell you right now, going back over the last 2 games, they've been in base 3-4 more than I've seen them, 4-3 at times. They haven't played 3 safeties a lot. They're not playing the best 11 on the field. Bradley, this is not what we saw last year with this mad scientist, Rob Ryan, putting everybody in a position to be successful.
Well, and they need to get back to that. I think if you look on that defense, their 3 best athletes are going to be Kenny Vaccaro, Raphael Bush, and Jairus Byrd.
Yes.
Yep.
And right beside it would be Keenan Lewis. If you're not having those players on the field, you said a second ago, they're not putting their best 11 on, then what are you doing? I mean, base works very little of the time. I mean, few teams play their base anymore. So if he could get back to doing what he did last year and just make up a defense as you go, you're going to help yourself because you're getting the guys on the field who can come up with stops, and you're also confusing other teams.
Think about how bad the defense is when you consider the offense. The offense puts up so many points. it gets other teams' offenses abandoning their game plan. Like, one thing you can do on the Saints is run the football up the gut, but teams feel compelled to abandon that, even when it's just 7-0, 10-0.
It's an arms race.
Yeah, because they think it's some arms race. It's like, boy, running the ball, demoralizing the Saints defense, eating time of possession, keeping Drew Brees off the field, that would go a long way. But the Saints get lucky, and we've seen it for years, where teams kind of abandon it. I'm sitting there going, man, why aren't they running? They're throwing? That's crazy. And it's good because the Saints get the ball back and win the game. But think about how great the Saints offense is and how much that bails out the defense in scoring points, having the other team change their philosophy, and they're still struggling.
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, can't trust this defense right now with a lead. It could change in the Dome on Sunday, but after 2 weeks in the regular season, that's their MO. You are who you are. Inability to make stops on third down to get off the field. In some cases, inability to make stops on fourth down. Is there a panacea here to be able to change this? Does it come down to that defensive line's got to play better? Is it in concert with the defensive backs? Bradley, I'll take you first. What do they have to do to turn this thing around? Because they got to turn it around pretty quick.
I mean, you go back to the Cleveland game. The defense actually improved from the Atlanta game, so it's not. It
had to.
It's true.
That's a historically bad performance.
It's not like they were just god awful in the Cleveland game. They just couldn't get off the field in that last series. And I think that really colors us. So I think what it comes down to on Sunday is they need to stop the run, which will probably be easier without Adrian Peterson, and make sure you get pressure on the quarterback. And I think that's where it all starts for the Saints. If they can get the defensive line playing to what we saw last year, then you're going to see things get better.
If history repeats itself, it'll be a big win. I think they would have won with Adrian Peterson on the field. They're definitely going to win with him off the field. The Saints are a pretty darn good team in the Louisiana Superdome. They're pretty good, even with defensive woes. The 12th man is huge. On the road, the Saints are a mediocre at best team. And to start the season with 2 games on the road, it caught up to the Saints. I think since last year's 5-0 start, I think the team's like 1 or 2 games under 500. Right. So they're kind of a mediocre team for the last year.
We'll take a quick 2-minute break. We'll be right back. Going straight to the phone lines, 866-3200. Bradley Handwerger, Corey Johnson, our guest tonight here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Don't go anywhere.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. At Natal's Air Conditioning, our motto is service honoring the golden rule. We're dedicated to providing the best air conditioning solution for your home or business in the New Orleans metro area. More information is available at 504-821-0005. Natal's Air Conditioning, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile. You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Corey Johnson of WGSO 990 AM and freelance journalist Bradley Handwerger are our guests. We'll go right to the phone lines. Let's head to Hunter in Metairie. Hunter, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I'm going to put this in the form of a question. I'd like your feedback on this. Has this occurred to you guys? Now, the defense is obviously struggling. That's putting it nicely. We have probably, at best, got 3 more good seasons with what I consider to be the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL, or close to it. Drew Brees is about as good as he's ever going to get for us. If we lose this season, we waste a season with this guy. I just wanted to see if anybody had thought about that. I know that's kind of gloom and doom and negative, but it is something that has occurred to me of late. I'll hang up. Thanks.
Hunter, thank you for the phone call, and I think you're right on that. Some could say that 2012 season was a lost season as well.
Oh, of course it was.
Guys?
It's gloom or doom, but it's also realism. I mean, here's a guy who is, in NFL terms, getting up in age.
Yep.
He's, playing with a surgically repaired shoulder. He doesn't have a lifetime of throws left. So, if you waste a season, then we're getting closer to what happens. How are we replacing him? That's where we're about to hit.
Yeah. Johnny and Chalmette thinks he's going to play till 45, but Johnny and Chalmette has the luxury of being a great Saints fan and going with the low percentage. I mean, you can count on one hand effective quarterbacks 40 and above in National Football League history. So, it's like 3-year window, like Hunter said.
Sure.
It's not much longer than that. Maybe Breeze plays till he's 39 or 40. I mean, I like Peyton's comments, like what Brady said, I play till I suck,
Right.
And Breeze makes the comment, I'll play till I'm 45, and he gets injured, a week later.
Yes.
And misses 2 weeks of training camp. So, yeah, it stinks. The Bounty Gate was terrible because that just totally took Breeze and the Saints out of the picture for a season at least. And maybe you could argue 2.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate. It's like, my God, you got one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game, and he's in his prime, and you lose him for a year. But, yeah, the window's closing. Peyton knows it.
Yes.
I think that's why they're aggressive in free agency.
Yeah.
But, it stinks that the defense is not playing too well.
Well,
right
they got
now.
to turn it around quickly. Obviously, they have the same cast of characters for the most part, and they got to figure out whether it's schematic-wise, whatever they got to do, they got to figure it out.
And you better protect Breeze.
Well,
the O-line's like better personnel-wise, but he's been getting beat up these first two games.
He's gotten hit a little bit, but I'll tell you what, for week 1, I thought the offensive line played well. Last week, they were a little porous.
I thought they were not very good, to put it lightly, in the first quarter, but I think they corrected themselves the rest of the game.
Goodwin has been a great addition. He really has.
No, that's a big upgrade at
They're a
center.
much more physical offensive line. They have more physicality now than they did.
No, you're right.
In the past.
And Armstead's really good.
Yes.
He's a great
he
left
is.
tackle. I mean, he's like great already, and Goodwin is a huge upgrade over De La Puente. I think he's playing for the Toronto Argonauts. I'm kidding. I don't know.
Chicago Bears. Starting.
I'm sure.
No.
I'm sure.
To Bradley and Harvey. Bradley, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Okay, I think we lost Bradley. Who's up next?
He was cursing that last call. We had to beep him out.
To DJ in New Orleans East. DJ, welcome.
Good evening, gentlemen. I thought of a defensive question while I was on hold, but the offensive question is, what happened to Marcus Colston on Sunday? And the defensive question is, I noticed during the game that the Saints played a lot of looked like zone defense, and the story going in was that Cleveland's wide receivers were average at best, and it just seems as though they were so far off the receivers that they were just getting passes in front of everybody. And I just wondered if y'all thought that they would go to a more of a man-to-man defense in the upcoming weeks. And I ain't
DJ,
gonna listen.
thank you for the phone call. Guys, we heard it all off season. We heard it all. They want to go bump and run. The reason why they brought Bird in was they had a guy that could help over the top. I've seen more zone defense this year than I've seen.
How do you bump and run 15 yards off the line?
That's a good point.
15 yards,
how
like
are you
beyond the
effective
first down.
as a safety
like,
if
my
you're
God.
30 yards off the ball?
Yeah.
Bradley?
It's to me, it says that there's no confidence in the corners in doing any kind of man coverage or any kind of coverage that gets them, with the receiver maybe running behind them. They want to give them room that they can run up and make the stop, and that's a recipe for disaster to me.
Boy, Colston not catching a ball
Not
for the
one.
first time. I can't remember. It is shocking,
Right.
and because we're fans or media or whatever, you're like, oh my gosh, it's the beginning of the end. It's like you're almost waiting for the beginning of the end for Colston. But he's been such a great player and a great target. You figure all camp he doesn't need to practice. Breeze doesn't need to practice. But that's probably pretty telling that Colston doesn't catch a ball last week.
I think he'll bounce back this week.
hope so.
I think that Breeze is going to target him. I just think he just got lost.
Maybe so.
And they were going to Graham. Graham was obviously beating everybody on the field. They were trying to get Cooks involved. Kenny Stills at times. I think you'll
was
see a
getting
lot
involved.
more.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I think you'll see a lot more. I think he's going to go out of his way to make sure that Colston is involved in the offense this week.
To me, it's sad that it comes after when he had the fumble against Atlanta, and I think people people are going to look for a correlation, and I don't think there's any correlation.
No, you're probably right.
You know what kind of shocked me about that, Bradley, is that I thought that Brees may go back to him immediately because he's done that in the past. Look, you're my guy. I'm going to go back to you. I'm going to make sure that you know that I got confidence in you. Obviously, that didn't happen. In last game, I think in the Dome, we'll see Colston that we're used to seeing. To Kenner and Larry. Larry, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, thank y'all for taking my call, gentlemen. Do y'all think it's time to get rid of Patrick Robinson? Because every time they go his way, they burn him. He can't catch the man. He's always interfering with the pass. And my second question is, every time the contracts are due, they want to play their butts off and show off, and after they get the money, they don't show nothing. Thank y'all. I'll listen.
Right. Guys, and I'll say it. I mean, he was a first-round pick for this team. It was a late first-round pick, but he's been a project since he's been here. Everybody wants to talk about a couple years ago where he led the team in interceptions. Well, somebody's got to lead the team in interceptions. I've just never seen it out of Patrick Robinson. Obviously, a pass rush would probably make him better, but he can't find the ball in flight. He seems to be, again, very fearful of the guy across from him, backpedaling immediately. It's time to go in another direction, in my opinion. Does he get cut? No, but there may be some changes. Any opinion one way or the other, guys?
They already kind of went in another direction.
I mean, I think you'll see more Corey White. Yeah, they even did that in the game against Cleveland. But I'm not as up to date on the NFL transaction wire as I used to be. But I don't know of anybody else out there right now that you can bring in. So,
that's an upgrade. It's even a starter type.
Asante Samuel's out there, but I mean, again, what are you going to get? You're going to get a veteran on fumes, like you want to get with Champ Bailey. Maybe can quickly pick the system up, or you're going to have to go on a practice squad and grab a kid there that maybe you had an eye on, but that's got to be a project. Nobody's letting quality corners go week 2 of the NFL.
No, I mean, and there's no doubt that Patrick Robinson is an athlete. The guy, you watch him out there, and he can do a lot of stuff. It's just a matter of, is he doing the right stuff, and can we get him to do the right stuff? And I think that's what the coaching staff was asking.
And only quarterback's a harder position to play.
Yes.
Cornerback's a nightmare.
Agreed. But I think there's a little fool's gold there as well. I think that practice for a veteran guy, training camp for a veteran guy, going against receivers, going against your teammate on a day-in, day-out basis. You know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know their speed. You can look great in practice. It's how do you play when the lights come on for real and you don't know the tendencies of the guy that's across from you. And then all of a sudden your athleticism has to take over. Your ability to be able to play the position has to take over. And I think a lot of people got sucked into, man, Patrick Robinson's playing really well. Well, Patrick Robinson knows the guys across from him. Maybe that helped him in training camp.
That's a scary thought. Think if the Saints had just like one of the second-tier quarterbacks. I was watching, who was it the other day? I mean, it was just like trying to complete a pass out in the flat, and it was down by their feet. I'm like, wow, can't even complete the basic stuff. If it's a second-tier NFL QB, and you're going up against him in practice, where would the Saints DBs be? Yeah. I mean, they're going up against Brees, who's a super competitor in practice, and a good group of wide receivers. That's a scary thought.
Bryce is in Folsom. Bryce, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Okay, let's
more cursing.
More cursing. This never stops on this program. It's a filthy program. To Daphne in New Orleans. Daphne, welcome.
Hello, how y'all doing?
Hey, Daphne.
I was just I got the answer why don't they get rid of Patrick Robinson, because hey, they're aiming at him every game, and I think they just bench him until he learns his lesson.
I think you're going to get your wish. I think Corey White's going to start, but I still think Patrick Robinson is going to be on the field for this team.
Has to, because he's 3 DBs. You got to have 3 corners.
Daphne, thanks for the phone call.
She's right, though.
Right?
She's 100% right. If you're the offensive coordinator of the opposition, isn't Patrick Robinson the guy you target every time?
Immediately. As soon as you take in warm-ups, you're targeting him. Are you kidding me?
And that may be why we're seeing some of the problems with, and maybe not the play of Jairus Byrd that people were expecting at him, because he's trying to cover for Patrick Robinson. He's got to make sure that nobody's beating Patrick Robinson. He's the guy protecting him.
No, I would agree with that. And again, almost kind of having to lean on his way to make sure that he's not getting beat. To Metairie and Brother, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
How you guys doing tonight?
Brother, how you doing?
Okay, I did some research on Rob Ron, okay, and I came up with Oakland, Cleveland, and Dallas. That's where the man has been a defensive coordinator at. In all the 3 spots that he's been in, the first year he turned the defense around and made it better. That's the good news. Not the bad news. After the first year, those 3 teams' defenses got no better at all. And that's not a pretty sight I had to read, but that's what Rob Ryan's career is. And I hope it don't continue down here, guys. Y'all have a great night.
Brother, I'm with you. Thanks.
Rob Ryan wasn't taken from Dallas. The Saints didn't, hey, he was under contract, we had to give up something, or the Saints had to, fight some contract with Jerry Jones to win Rob Ryan. Rob Ryan was on the street. Dallas released him, basically.
But he was at St. Louis ready to sign a contract for about a week when the Saints grabbed him.
Right.
But no, you're right. And Brother's right. If you look at the stats, the way they kind of bear out, year 1 to year 2, obviously there's a problem with Rob Ryan keeping the consistency. But look at those franchises, too. Dallas, Cleveland, Oakland.
The one common factor in all those, and you could make an argument maybe Dallas doesn't necessarily fit in this list, their offenses are terrible. See, he's finally at a franchise where the offense can help the defense, and we saw that last year. Now it's a matter of can they get back to that this year.
866-3200. Let's talk a little bit about the offense, man. I tell you what, big loss with Mark Ingram. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I was leading the charge of getting him out of town, but he's learned how to be a solid running back in the NFL. And even though I think that they'll be fine with Robinson and Gadet and Pierre Thomas, they'll pick up as long as they don't get another injury. He is going to be a big loss for this team.
He is a huge loss for the team. I mean, I look at pre-St. Louis last year offense versus post-St. Louis last year offense, and the one common thread was the run game was different, and a lot of that went on Mark Ingram after St. Louis. He started playing like the guy that they traded up for and wanted to get. He ran hard. He didn't, he didn't hesitate at things. He just kind of went at the hole, and you saw that carry over to the preseason and into the first 2 games. It's a big loss. I do feel like with Kyrie Robinson, they really have a good guy to play for Mark, but you're losing some of that veteran will at that point when he's on the sideline.
Yeah, to say Ingram emerged last week would probably be an overstatement, but he kind of did, and it was a lot of physical, powerful running. And I think the Saints are a team that they just want to put 7 on the board. They don't care if it takes 30 seconds, 3 minutes. Right. But I think with this defense, they need to worry about time of possession a little bit. They need to run the ball. I think Robinson's going to do a really good job. He's a good inside, powerful runner. But Ingram seemed to be coming into his own the last game and a half or so. And this hand's going to keep him out for like 4 weeks.
Yeah, and don't discount Pierre Thomas as well. I mean, an underrated inside runner. No doubt about that. Charlie is in Picayune. Charlie, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Charlie, you with us? Okay, we'll put Charlie on hold. We'll try to come back to Charlie. Guys, the situation right now with the Saints as they get into this game, they got a couple of key injuries. Hawthorne is injured. His ankle is injured. Also, Jonathan Goodwin with the elbow. How critical are those injuries going into this game?
Goodwin obviously would be a bigger loss. Right. I mean, here's a guy who came back from San Francisco, obviously played in a really physical offense in there, and I think, as you said earlier, we brought that physicality back with him. Hawthorne being out, he's played well. Last year he played really well. I think the first 2 games he played fairly well. I don't think there's a huge fall-off at Ramon Humber, who will likely go in his place.
No, Humber might be better, arguably. I mean, Humber seems to be in the backfield, disrupting things, causing problems. At least that part of the game may be a little better than Hawthorne.
And we may see them utilize more safeties now with Hawthorne coming out, because he is a little bit more of a better linebacker, if there is such a thing on this team, against the pass. So
I think this dome field advantage, the first home game, that's going to be the elixir.
I agree. Saints win on Sunday?
I think the Saints win pretty big on Sunday.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think they got a lot to get off their plate. I don't know about big, but they definitely win. Ronald's in New Orleans East. Ronald, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Ronald.
How you doing?
Doing great, Ronald. How are you?
Okay. You ready for my question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, look, my question is this. I think we have one of the best offenses in the NFL. But who's doing the play calling? The coaches or Drew Brees calls these on the plays? Because their last play, when he got sacked for the 10 yards, it was in field goal range.
Right.
And they tried to run it out pass play, and in field goal range, don't you think it would have been better for a run play? And as far as coaching not catching the ball, I don't think they're using the receivers right, because I think they ought to pass a little more. They have one of the best offense in the NFL, but I think it's bad play calling.
Ronald, thank you for the phone call. Guys, as you mentioned, Carmichael's not calling the plays. Peyton's calling the plays. But remember, Breeze has the autonomy to go to that line of scrimmage and to change run, pass, change the play at the line.
That I don't believe. If you go back and you look at that play, I don't think that was a play call issue. That was somebody missed their assignment issue.
Mm-hmm. Hey, does even Peyton Manning call his own plays? I mean, I don't think that really happens too much in the National Football League.
I know he has the autonomy at the line of scrimmage to be able to get in or get out of a play. And they've tailed that offense for him.
And I do know that Drew will, if they're in a certain situation, say 2-minute, 4-minute, Drew has the ability that he can just run through it and he can call the plays.
Yeah, right. John is in New Orleans. John, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, John.
Hey.
How are you tonight?
My question is, why they never got rid of Corey White and Patrick Robinson if they have other veteran cornerbacks in the free agent market?
Repeat the question if you would, please.
I was wondering why they never got rid of Corey White and Patrick Robinson. I know Patrick Robinson a good nickel cornerback, but you can't start him because he's not a man-to-man, and Patrick Robinson just keep getting beat.
Right. No, look, I think, and thank you for the phone call, I know I agree with you, but I think they were looking at what they had.
Yeah, where do you go?
What they had left to be able to spend in free agency, how much corners cost because they're at a premium, and ultimately they thought they were getting maybe at least a one-year panacea with Champ Bailey before Stanley Jean-Baptiste would be able to grow into that role. Corey White is a nice inside nickel corner, and I think he could play for most teams in the NFL. He gets exposed when you put him on the outside, and I know that the fan base is really beating down on Patrick Robinson, but I think we all have to be fair and say they've got to have a better pass rush. It doesn't matter who's going to be out there. They've got to have a better pass rush. But, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of Patrick Robinson. 866-3200. Let's shift gears to the Tigers. We'll still take questions on LSU, Tulane, or the Saints. Guys, this is the biggest – I think this is the biggest game of the season. You could talk about Wisconsin. Wisconsin exposed this team just a little bit. I've said all along, I think there's going to be some growing pains with the young skill position players, but I think that when you get into SEC play, you got to be dominant up front, offensive, defensive lines, and I think we're going to see where the rubber hits the road on this team this week against Mississippi State. Corey, your thoughts?
Yeah, State's a pretty good team. I mean, Dak Prescott's a good QB. He's from North Louisiana. Good wide receiver, good running back. They got a good defensive end. They got a good cornerback. So they've got the skill position players. LSU's owned Mississippi State. And I'm not into streaks and stuff, but you almost figure, my God, State's due for a win sometimes. They are going to be fired up. I'll tell you this much. Two things that I think help LSU in this game tremendously. One, it's at Tiger Stadium. And two, it's John Chavis has done a great job with these spread attacks, probably better than any defensive coordinator in the SEC.
You're right there.
2 years of Johnny Manziel at A&M, he totally negated, and not a lot of folks can say that. And has had success with State and teams that, employ that type of attack. So those are a couple of benefits, but I think this is going to be a real dogfight. If LSU doesn't play a really solid game, they'll get beat Saturday night.
No, I think it's going to be one of those.
Did you go with that because Mississippi State's the Bulldogs? Is that how you like that?
I just kind of subconsciously came out, I guess.
You talk about the magnitude of this game. I covered Auburn for a couple years in the mid-2000s, and this game kind of reminds me of in 2004 when Auburn hosted LSU. And that was the season that Auburn ended up going undefeated.
Yes.
LSU came in as a team that people thought, all right, this is going to be a real test. And it was a real battle. And it was one of the better games I've covered. And Auburn won and then really kind of got on a roll after that. And I can see this being the same type of game. You've got a Mississippi State team that went into Mobile and beat the pants off of South Alabama. And people don't do that. Actually, a lot of people do that. But... Mississippi State's not bad. that's a really good offense, and Dak Prescott is, I think, one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, if not the country right now. And if they being LSU can get the win and really play solid, look for this team to go on a roll.
I mean, I would think, just looking at it on paper, State's gonna, I don't want to say have more incentive or be more pumped up for the game, but it's such a big game for State.
Yes.
And for LSU, it's one of their lesser SEC games. I mean, Florida's a bigger game. Ole Miss is a bigger game. Auburn's a bigger game. Alabama's a bigger game. Texas A&M's a bigger game. It almost goes in the Arkansas category. LSU's expected to win. They're supposed to win. I mean, I don't want to sit here and say, man, I got a bad feeling about this one, but I would think State's going to, if you're State, you want to get a quick lead on LSU. I mean, that's got to be their goal, to go up 10-0, 14-0. I mean, I'm sure that's everyone's goal every week. But no, I'd be worried, a little nervous if I'm LSU. Coach Miles seems to be saying the right things, though. He seems to be taking State seriously.
Right.
They better.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you look how big that Wisconsin offensive defensive lines were. Mississippi State will rival that. And, it took a while for them to get going against Wisconsin. It took some injuries in that defensive front for them to get going offensively. They had to go with the kind of the 3 wide receiver to kind of spread things out. On the defensive side of the ball, they had to go with run blitzes. And then, of course, Wisconsin's top back goes out. They got to come ready to play. They've had a chance now to kind of get their legs under them. They got to prove that they can physically match up with SEC West type teams. And Mississippi State is a good litmus test.
But you know what? I like this LSU team. I think, look, they're number 8. People obviously buy into them, but I don't think people are talking about them. And I think that's a good position for a young team that needs to get experience to be in. And this is the first real test. Wisconsin was a test, but I think we saw in the second half changes were made. The LSU's athletes really took over, but they're going to be matched athlete for athlete at this point. I think this you're going to see where they really are right now.
What do you have, 5 SEC West Division teams in the top 10?
Amazing.
5 SEC West Division teams in the top 10. State's 28th, by the way.
Yeah, and
they're not bad.
Can't overlook them. That's for sure.
You can't.
Charlie's in Picayune. Charlie, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Charlie, you with us?
You overlook them, you lose, Eric.
Yeah. I think Charlie went to the refrigerator again. We'll move on. Tulane coming off a big win against Southeastern, 35-20, under the lights at Yeoman Stadium. One thing that surprised me about the Tulane team with going against Southeastern, how much bigger Tulane was to Southeastern. It's going to be kind of the flip side this week. I watched a little bit of Duke last week. They got some big boys at Duke. It's going to be interesting to see how Tulane handles it. Bradley, I'll take you first. Your thoughts on Tulane and Duke.
I think getting a win at home against Southeastern was huge for this program. They had one game against Tulsa that they arguably should have won.
Now, Curtis beat Southeastern the week before.
Wow. Southeastern's one of the better FCS teams.
Let me tell you something. They really are.
That's to me why that was a big win.
I picked Southeastern to beat Tulane last week simply because of the problems that Tulane was having with their field goal kicker. I never imagined they'd go in and dominate them like they did.
But that to me is why it was such a big win. I mean, Southeastern is one of your better FCS teams out there, and they're going to do some trouble in the FCS playoffs this year. And to get that win and to do it the manner they did, I think really helps Tanner Lee and this young offense and this coaching staff really kind of start putting things together.
Yeah, I would agree. Corey, anything you can add?
Well, I mean, you got Duke coming or going to Duke, and another ACC team like Georgia Tech, maybe better than Tech. Yeah. I think Bradley was saying off the air, more disciplined than Tech.
Yes.
So, Tulane's going to have their hands full. I mean, Tulane is probably a year or two away. I like what they're doing, but a lot of freshmen playing. Right. The new stadium's going to kind of carry momentum for this team. I think if they can get to 500 this year, that'll be a great job.
I agree with you. No doubt.
6-6 would be huge.
They got to get bigger on the front, on the offensive defensive lines. That's the key going forward. The skill position players are there. Tanner Lee's going to grow as a quarterback, but you've got to get bigger, and that's got to be what they're beating the bushes for right now. Offense and defensive linemen, and then even then you've got to get those guys in a weight room. They're not going to come in and start for you immediately. You got to do like what Buddy Tevens did. Redshirt those guys and get them ready for the next season.
You wish you could just pull the Southern Miss model and take the scraps from Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi State, Alabama, Florida, Panhandle, but a lot of the scraps can't get into Tulane. Tulane really needs a, kind of a, like a lot of these schools do, where they, I guess they've tried, Bradley and Eric. They've got kinesiology now, things like that. But they need like I don't know.
Saying kinesiology is easy?
Well, no, but I'm just saying it's more of the jock kind of major than
You're talking to a future physical therapist. Right. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. I mean, then you should be able to relate to what I'm talking about a little bit. No, I mean, it's not easy, but I think it's Tulane's a full-blown academic school, and I think you need some majors that are relatable to athletes, like kinesiology.
I've always wondered, and Vanderbilt is in the same boat to me as Tulane. Maybe not past couple years, but Stanford does really well. Right. Arguably better or just as good, at least, as an academic program. And why aren't they struggling?
Well, because Vandy and Stanford actually let in folks that normally couldn't get in the school academically, and Tulane tends to not do that. If you're great at football, I'm not saying you definitely have to be able to read or write, but Vanderbilt and Stanford will let you in, and Tulane won't.
Well, I mean, look, Georgia Tech, Duke.
They all do it.
I mean, that's, they all bend a little bit. That's what you're looking at right now when you're putting this model up there. Stanford, Georgia Tech, Duke, as you mentioned. Vandy to a lesser degree, but Vandy was probably the smartest out of all of them, not getting out of the SEC. I mean, they've gotten riches out of it, and look, they've been kind of a whipping boy at times, but it is what it is. This is going to be a big test for Tulane, simply because I think they're going to be physically outmatched. It'll be interesting to see. They can't turn the football over. That's the main thing. Let's head back to the phone lines. John is in New Orleans. John, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
How you doing? I got one more question. On paper, we have one of the best offenses. Talking about the Saints. When Drew Brees first came to the league, he used to always spread the ball. Why does he run from spreading the ball and you constantly see him throw the ball and double cover Jimmy Graham?
Thank you for the phone call, guys.
If he's just throwing double coverage to Jimmy Graham, it tells me one thing. He really, really, really trusts Jimmy Graham in any situation. And you know what? I would too.
He did it with Colston early. Remember, he used to throw it high into double coverage. He tends to rely on those guys, especially big receivers.
And 9 times out of 10, that's fine. The problem is he has too much trust in him sometimes, and he gets into trouble, and he throws the ball in bad positions, and it gets intercepted.
Yeah, I mean, that pick six was brutal last week, but I mean, God, Brees is the least of your worries.
Absolutely.
This is one of the greatest players to ever play for the greatest player to ever play for the Saints, and one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever suit up in NFL history.
Yeah. And I think he's going to spread the ball around more now. He's got more weapons, and they got speed on the field finally. I mean, you've got a guy like Cooks, you've got Kenny Stills on the field, and then you got big receivers in Colston and obviously Jimmy Graham.
Well, what stinks for Brees is this questionable defense now, and kind of running back by committee, wide receiver by committee. Most great teams have, all-pro wide receiver and all-pro running back with their star quarterback. Brees has to carry a lot of extra weight, and he's only 6 feet tall, and he's, it's
and you
pretty
don't
amazing.
Want him running at this point?
No, you don't want him running or getting hit at all. Of course not.
No doubt. Back to the phone lines. Ryan is in Mid-City. Ryan, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Yeah, how y'all doing?
Hey, Ryan.
I think y'all giving the Saints, y'all not, the Saints is looking awful, man. They're looking awful offensively and defensively. Corey White is awful. Bird is awful. They look like they're scared to tackle big running backs. They just look bad, and I just think that LSU, y'all selling LSU down a little bit too much, man. LSU got major athletes, man, and a major coaching staff. So I just listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Defensively, they got their problems. I don't think the Saints have a problem on the offensive side of the ball right now. I mean, they're not hitting on all cylinders, but they're playing pretty darn good. And I don't think anybody's discounting what LSU's doing. My whole thing is, it's going to come down to what goes on up front. If they can compete in the SEC with the offensive defensive lines, then they are going to have a chance to go far. Because I do think that from a skill position standpoint, they're as good as anybody. They're just young.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you listen to NFL scouts talk about what sets apart the SEC from everybody else, it's the big athletic defensive linemen and offensive linemen that can handle them.
Yep.
And if LSU can figure out a way to constantly win those battles, consistently win those battles, which they have so far this season, then they're on the right path.
Yeah, that speed quickness combination, size, speed, quickness that the SEC has is unprecedented. He's right about LSU. The staff is great. The coaching staff, offense coordinator, defense coordinator, the assistant coaches, they teach, these players learn, and LSU is loaded with athletes. I mean, young freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores, redshirt sophomores, a lot of youngsters playing. LSU is loaded with athletes, there's no doubt.
Gentlemen, thanks for being with us tonight here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Corey Johnson, Bradley Handwerger, and thank you so much for watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m., also on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. You can catch me on the radio weekdays 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. on WGSO 990 a.m. And you can also check us out on the web at ericasher.com, where you can download the podcast, listen live to the radio show, or check out the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports. Special thanks to our guests, Bradley Handwerger and Corey Johnson, and also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juno, and of course my director, William Hill. For Bradley Handwerger, for Corey Johnson, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll see you right back here next Thursday night, 6 p.m. Have a great evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. At Natal's Air Conditioning, our motto is service honoring the golden rule. We're dedicated to providing the best air conditioning solution for your home or business in the New Orleans metro area. More information is available at 504-821-0005. Natal's Air Conditioning, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.